Okay, anagadi wahi gajokwa. So what I'm see you starting. Gajit danserio you just go we no ji on that just go in a star ronat runi. They tinu wada do. Garunga gari yo gesu. Yeti sota asitanka garako dana yeti nistanz yo hunzage dana agwe guskat ne ganungwe. They tinu wada do agwe jini ganyat der gerdo dana agwegu onunka sua. They tinu wada do yeti sota gunhan there on the headstone gonna go ri or the hawakwe. Ayoki at again had damdawe or on headstone because at stasera ne ganungwe. Damdawe or on headstone because at stasera ne agwegu agwejini ganyat der gerdo. So what I had said is, as always, we have to introduce ourselves before we begin, and I identify my name is Gadzit Danzario. This is the name that my mother has given me, and when she was alive in this world, she carried the sacred title of Wolf Clan Mother. And that we always begin by giving thanks to our origins. So the very first thing I identify is we give thanks to the great spiral of Sky Woman herself, and we give thanks to her as it is she who has given us spirit. From there, we give our thanks to our grandmother Moon, the beating heart of our mother Earth. As you all know, it is she who regulates the flow of the lifeblood upon all things here on our mother Earth. And so we give thanks to her, as it is she who has given us blood. From there, we give our thanks to our mother Earth, regardless of where we are, what color we are, what language we speak. We are all born of the same mother. So we give thanks to her, as it is she who has given us body. From there, we give thanks to all the women, from the newest born baby girl to the eldest grandmother, as they all carry into this world the sacred title of life giver. And we honor and we respect them for that title. And so we give thanks to them for in this world, they give us direction. From there, we offered our thanks to all the medicines in all the shapes and forms they come in. And today, to give thanks for everybody that is here, because everyone that is here is medicines, not only to each other, but for the good work that everybody is doing, medicine to our Mother Earth. From there, we give thanks to, did I say all the waters? I said all the waters? Okay, from there we give thanks to all our ancestors who carry the good mind, and we ask them to help us, show us how to bring back our mothers back to their natural seat of authority within all our people so they can manage the peoples properly once again. And then we ended off by saying once again, we give our thanks to our ancestors to help us to bring back the life to all the waters in all the shapes and forms they come in. And as we are gathered today, we are gathered for that specific purpose as to what is happening, not only in Hawaii, but worldwide, what is happening to the waters. We as a species, I don't have to tell you this, are destroying the source of our life, which is the waters. So to begin with, I want to have Edith introduce herself.
Very happy to see you all. Paul Watson, it's been a while that we are supposed to meet, so I'm really, really happy to see you. I'm very happy to see everybody that is standing for the waters. It's just so great. My name is Edith, and I am Zapotec from the Zapotec Nation. The name of my mother is Socorro Castellan, and the name of my grandmother is Francisca Rueda. And it is through them that I get my identity. And I give thanks for the fact that I'm here in the Longhouse learning the matrilineal ways and the ways to protect all of the female entity that is what gives us life.
Okay, so today we have to be thankful to our good friend and our sister Anik. It is her that makes this possible. So we're going to turn it over to Anik, and then you can introduce from there the work that you did to piece this together. So Nyawa go, everybody, we give thanks. Anik.
Aloha, mahalo ki kua. I'm so happy to be connected today with you, Terry, and Donovan and Paul. Thank you so much. And Elisa, nice to see you. I'm happy you were capable of joining. Wow, it's like the family is reuniting. It's amazing. I'm very happy to see that you're still kicking, Terry. Thank you so much for being alive still And Paul, thank you very much for everything that you're doing. I've been following your work for so long. I'm so grateful that you're here with us today. Donovan, you're still kicking it also. The beautiful, hey Shaka dude. I just wanted to mention my name, Anik. My mother is Kiki. My grandmother is Rita, and also Ella. I would like to say thank you for Sky Woman, her who gave me spirit, and also Grandmother Moon, her who gave me water, connecting me to the sea. I would like to say thank you also for Mother Earth, her who gave me body, and my mother. So I would like to also say thank you to everybody for being the life protectors, because I think that's pretty much our mission here today. This is what reunites us. Basically, Terry, I'm just gonna let you speak because you're the one that has all the science and you have all the information for Paul. I wanted to put you guys together because I promised you 3 years ago that I would send you some backup. So I think these are pretty big ships, and Paul is a very strong spirit. So I'm just gonna let you guys speak.
First of all, Donovan, can you mute your mic? Only the person that's speaking should have their microphone unmuted.
There you go.
It's my mic.
Okay. So basically, I'm just gonna let Terry speak right now. So Terry, if you want to mute your microphone, and I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. Hey, thanks, Anik. This is really very special, by the way. And I'll just give a super brief introduction to my background. I was raised in a Hawaiian culture and an Egyptian culture, both at the same time, and trained in the art of huna. And basically, ever since I've been here on Earth, I've been representing female energy and bringing back the connection with nature, with people. I was gifted by my parents and allowed to do so. I've traveled all around the world and lived with indigenous cultures. And I had a research center for captive breeding indigenous and endangered reptiles for 30 years. Over the past 20 years, I've been on a worldwide campaign as a professional marine biologist. I've been to 25 different countries and doing documentary movies about coral reefs and marine life, mostly for education for school classes. In the process, I have discovered, not that I wanted to, but the US Navy and other navies, the Australian Navy, New Zealand, and Japanese, and what they're doing since 2012 with their underwater electromagnetic warfare out of submarines weapon testing programs off the Great Barrier Reef, off Oahu, off Kauai, number of other places in the world. And I've actually documented with video and did a National Geographic special on it, by the way, that was supposed to air 2016. And Rupert Murdoch purchased National Geographic and canceled the show. And so it has never aired, but I've got out to about 20 million people with my underwater movies, showing and documenting the US Navy against the law, against the Marine Mammal Protection Act, against the Endangered Species Act, with only limited permits, of wiping out dolphins, whales, monk seals, sea turtles, and entire areas of coral reef here in Hawaii. And I've got it all on video. We've got the science behind it. The problem is that we were highly blocked by the military, highly blocked by the government here in Hawaii, the governors, and a lot of the politicians for getting this information out there. And what was really a breaking point for me is 3 years ago, I was diving next to a military ship about a half mile away, and I got electrocuted by a microwave blast and had a heart seizure. I was medevaced to Lilley Hospital where they pronounced me dead. My heart was completely turned backwards. All my arteries were clogged off. There's no legitimate reason as to why I should be alive and speaking to all of you today. I lived, obviously. They medevaced me to Straub Hospital in Honolulu, where they turned my heart backwards to normal and put in heart stents. A month later, I was back out underneath the water documenting the military killing the marine life. What I found out with all of this, and Tulsi Gabbard, our congresswoman, set it up with me. She came to Kauai and dove with me to document it personally. I did a movie with her. I got NOAA, USGS, Scripps Institute, University of Hawaii all here. I did movies with all of them. Then once we got to the point of proving how the military with their submarines was killing the animals in the marine life in the coral reefs through these electromagnetic impulses, all of the people involved in the project either got fired or were classified or moved away from the area. So we hit a hot button on the whole entire issue. The big problem right now that I'm going to throw out there, and Paul, I just would love to keep communication with you on this because I think we have a lot of stuff to share and do together here, is that the military in 2012 has started, again, this underwater electromagnetic warfare program. They're doing it off New Zealand, off the Great Barrier Reef, off the North Shore of Oahu and the North Shore of Kauai. All of those areas have lost their coral reefs, and every time they're out there operating, then we get the whales to beach and the dolphin, and they all end up dead. But on top of that, it's destruction and completely wiping out entire coral reef ecosystems. And I'm going to Palau next week, by the way, but I've been to 20 different island locations in the world where there is no submarine activity, and the coral reefs there are all doing wonderful, and they have very little marine life problems. Now, the military does not have permits from NOAA Marine Fisheries to do underwater submarine warfare electromagnetic weapons testing here in Hawaii, nor do they along the Pacific Northwest. So all this stuff's been going on illegally. And Earth Justice and the NRDC, I've complained a lot to them. They won't react to this new program of this weapons testing, and I'm not sure why. And that's what I've shared in depth with the Nick about. And so she stepped up to the plate and got us all together to maybe make a game plan on how to go forward on this. So I'm just going to step back, and I'm here for any questions. I've got all this documented on video. I've done 325 movies that have seen by over 20 million people on this. So we've got the support of the people, especially here in Hawaii, and Donovan can talk about that better than anybody. So anyway, mahalo. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, so Paul, you're pretty much the next expert here. If you could give your 2 cents on this, we all want to hear it.
Well, thank you. I consider myself a biocentrist. That is, that somebody who, that we're a part of everything and not dominant over everything. And I think that's one of the real problems that we have in the world today is with this anthropocentric attitude that we're superior and above all other creatures. And so ultimately that has to be changed. This sonar testing and electromagnetic testing by the navies around the world is completely irresponsible and arrogant. And the reason that they get away with it is because it's considered in the interests of national security. The United States Navy has been exempted from many things for decades in the interests of national security. And I know the NRDC and others have taken the Navy to court numerous times. But, that's a real problem that we have. It's this military industrial powers that control the governments. And they do what they want to do, and they get away with it. The only solution to this, the only way to address it, again, is to get that information out, which is what Terry's doing. But we have to get it out to more and more people. And it's good that Tulsi Gabbard is very much involved with that. And National Geographic, well, as you said, Robert Murdoch has pretty much put an end to that. But there are other ways of getting it out. And I think that possibly, I know it's strange, but CNN seems to be more receptive to getting things like this out than most other networks, at least on the things that we've been dealing with. And I think it'd be good to probably approach producers with CNN and explain things with them. And of course, we will help. We've got a lot of, so we got over 1 million people on social networks and that, and we can certainly reach out and see about people supporting and distributing this information, especially the video, because as I've always said, in the world that we live in right now, the camera is the most powerful weapon, and if it's not on camera, if it's not on film, well, it's not real in the eyes of everybody. So it's very important that we use the cameras to the most maximum effect. And it's very courageous of you, Terry, to go out there underwater and record these things while it's happening, because the military doesn't really, they don't care about animals. They certainly don't care about people either. They're there to really cater to the people who really control them, and the people who control them are the oil companies and the corporations and all of that. So ultimately, our only way of addressing that is by getting the right people into position, and that's one of the reasons I'm supporting Tulsi Gabbard for president. We certainly don't want more of the same, but anything that Sea Shepherd can do to help spread the word, we're certainly be there for you.
That is.
I just want to respond for a second, just say thank you, Paul, and I agree with you 100% on all that stuff. Having a camera there, getting it out to the public. The only thing that kept me alive, and I'll just one really brief thing, and I won't name names, but people could figure it out. My own family are top military industrial complex leaders. My own half brother worked with the Star Wars policy under Ronald Reagan and does the permittings for most of the weapons production for many of the military industrial complex companies. So I kind of knew all of this stuff was coming down the pike just by being around my family. And the only thing, Paul, that kept me alive, the only thing, was my Sony camera. I'd take a picture, take a movie of a sea turtle getting blown up by a Navy ship, come in on the beach, make a movie, upload it, and have it out to 2 million people before the Navy ship was out of the area. That's the only thing that kept me alive and allowed me to get this out to the public. And, with all of what you do and all the good things and TV shows and nonprofit and all that, we got the technology to blast this stuff out to the public. And I think it would really promote and help Tulsi Gabbard in her campaign, by the way. So anyway, I appreciate it. And we'll stay connected on that. It's a good deal.
I want to address something that the both of you touched on, is that I've been hearing about this for a long time. Anique has been filling us in ever since she's been back here about yourself, Terry. She's been really excited about the information that you bring forward. I've been hearing from Paul for, I don't know when's the first time we had contact. That's like maybe 12 years ago or something like that. But I gotta confess that until I am listening to you, until you are actually talking to us on these levels, those things that I've been hearing are, it's almost like it's just a story. Like it's not, almost like it's not real until you are there to put it across to us in a way that we can, that it becomes more human, more understandable to us. So on this level, this is what I am going to do, say that we will do right now. I've been hearing from Paul for, I don't know, why do we have an echo human, more understandable to us. So on this level, we got some kind of echo here. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Once a week, Terry and Paul, once a week, we're going to take your information and we're going to place it onto our page and onto the big page that Marie-Claude controls. Those pages alone reach almost 500,000 people. So once a week, we're going to take that. So if you can give us like a synopsis once a week. Today we are Friday. I will say that we'll go from here. That if you can have a synopsis of stuff ready to be released, or like you do a news broadcast once a week, then we will put that on our page and put that out. Not only from you, Terry, but also from you, if you can do that, Paul, if that's a possibility from the Sea Shepherd levels. So Nyawa, that's what I want to say on this. Anik, you are the one that arranged all of this. So if you take the helm from here and present who you want to talk or who's going to speak. Those pages alone read.
We were supposed to have someone from Sea Shepherd Hawaii, because I was communicating with the Facebook page. Her name was, oh my goodness, what was her name? Hold on. Okay, so she said she was going to assist so she can maybe put some information, but she needed to ask Paul's permission. Her name is Andrea Capilla. She's the one that's taking care of all the Sea Shepherds Hawaii. And she said she didn't know any information about what was really happening with the military and all that. So I just wanted to ask Paul if it's possible that Andrea knows a little bit more about what's really happening in Hawaii, because, you know, there's so many organizations and everybody's doing things individually. And I think if everybody comes together, it'll be a lot easier. Me and Terry, you know, we've been through that. You know, we had, oh, see, she just answered. She said she's going to come on soon. Me and Terry, we went through a lot, you know, trying to start movements. And then, you know, there was like the reef, what were they called? The Reef Guardians. Yeah. Anyways, we worked, you know, with Alyssa, we worked so much, you know. We have Mahana also, she's supposed to come on. We were a bunch of girls, you know, just working right next to Terry. He had his women crew there with him. We were all very passionate about trying to save our ohana. So basically, yeah. Paul, if we can get in contact with this person that's taking care, Andrea Gonzalez of the Sea Shepherd Hawaii, I think that could be a good thing. And maybe if Terry Lilley can also give them information, and I don't know who's taking care of that page besides Andrea, but maybe that would be a good thing.
I've already given her the okay to do that, so you certainly can, you know, communicate with her.
Mahalo, Paul. Thank you very much.
Anik too. I'm in Oahu about 10 days a month. I'm doing my reef studies over there, and I got a place to stay over there, so I can meet up with anyone in person. And like I said, I have over 3,000 hours of footage and 300 edited short movies. Lots of pictures and documents. So if you want to set that up at any time where I just meet up with someone in person where we can sit down and spend the afternoon, and then I can give them a lot of info. So they have it on hand to post and use whenever they want to.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Terry. So yeah, I think it's really important that we just come together, because there's so many like different organizations and people doing their own thing, and everybody has their own, you know, opinion, and nobody's really coming together. And I mean, this is serious. We really have to do something about this. So by having Paul and Terry together, I think that's a good thing. Thank you very much.
Elisa wanted to address something.
So something I just thought of, I would love to see 60 Minutes get a hold of this story. That would be incredible. I don't know what avenues we could go to potentially make that happen, but that would be a big way. And the other question I have is, I know that it's important to get the message out so people know, but then what? Do we need money like we would work together 3 years ago to try to be able to hire Earth Justice on this? Or what would be, besides getting the word out, what is the funnel that we need so that things can get propelled forward?
Let me address that really quick, Elisa. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely need funds. We had a grant for $450,000 from NOAA that was canceled the second day Donald Trump was in office. Canceled all the scientific grants. And I had a team of 12 different biologists I was teaching, so we could monitor with video cameras the entire island of Kauai 24/7 and document what the military was doing every day. And then we lost our dive boats and our places to live in the April flood here. So we're doing everything for free on next to no budget whatsoever. So we really need some funding. There's no question about that. And we definitely need an editor video person that can take the day-by-day videos and get it out to the right people. I do have videos that are already done, 3-minute videos right now. Tulsi Gabbard's utilized some. They've been shown in Congress. So I already have edited movies showing and asking for donations and scientific funding. And I also have edited movies about the problem that we could send directly to the CNN folks. So I think more than anything, we just need a team of people, like Kanienkehaka said, all working on the same page. But we do need some good scientific funding coming into Kauai here so we can keep up the monitoring day by day of what's happening out on the reef. That's like super, super important because we're not getting it now through any of the government agencies, that's for sure. So.
I think what we're learning overall, since the time that we stepped out of our longhouse, up until that time, we were in our longhouse here doing our ceremonies, and we were like everybody else on the planet, pretty much isolated to ourselves. But the moment we stepped out of our longhouse to take responsibility for what's going on in the world, the first contact we made was with Paul Watson and the Sea Shepherd Nation. Now, I call them the Sea Shepherd Nation. No, I don't look at them as an organization. I look at them as a nation because they are actually functioning outside of any national laws and actually enforcing international laws. I look at them as an organization. Again, I look at them as a nation because they are actually functioning outside any national. For some reason, I don't know, we keep having this echo. I don't know if you hear it, but anyways. What we learned is that, of course, everybody needs funding. Everybody needs resource people. But what we've learned is that we have to realize that humanity is being left out in the cold. Science and government, industry, whatever we want to label it, is leaving humanity behind. It's not taking into consideration life on Earth, which is our responsibility to take care of. So I think what we are coming to an understanding of here is, again, more echo. For some reason, I don't know, on Earth, which is our responsibility to take care of. What we are coming to an understanding of here is that we are finding that we are, again, left out in the cold. We have to take responsibility for our own humanity. We have to take responsibility in the different territories we live in to protect not just waters, not just land. We cannot isolate ourselves to a particular specialty. We have to become what our ancestors, all of our ancestors used to be, people of our Mother Earth. And as people of our Mother Earth, of course, we got to make ourselves fully knowledgeable of everything what is going on, sky, land, water, beneath the ground. And this will make us, again, complete whole beings. And when we are there at that place, then we will, each of us, be able to take the full responsibility in our territories. We won't be lacking in different places until we get there. I think the number one thing we have to solicit from people, particular again, more echo. Lacking. Jeez whiz. Why does this echo keep coming? Until we get Okay, for some reason we keep getting
Stuart,
anyways.
it's because you have 1, 2, 3 pages Longhouse open, so it's normal. It's going to do echo. So maybe you
No,
should.
but-
There's like 1, 2, 3.
No,
open.
there's only 2, and Edith has hers on mute, so there's no reason. But anyways, you see, this is one of the things we have problems with technology, and when we do this, it happens quite often that we need a resource person to stand to the call immediately, as you do, Terry, and as you know, Paul, you need that immediately. We can't afford to wait in the circumstances that we are in. So until we get there, again, the number one thing we need to solicit from people is people themselves, people with skills, people who care, people who are sincere about these things, so that we have each other to depend upon, not where we're going to have to be depending on somebody who's raising funds for us on the other side of the world or whatever. But anyways, on that level, I think that the more that we do this type of sharing, the more people see that there is an urgency. Because soon as I heard you, Terry, speaking with Paul, it brought things to a higher level of urgency for me. In my own mind, it made me understand things a little bit better. And this is, again, ultimately what we need. We need people to understand. So we call right now, I'll call to all the people that we reach, wherever you are. This is where the people are on the front lines. Not only is Paul Watson and the Sea Shepherd Nation on the front lines protecting and defending the world's oceans. So no matter where you are, the Sea Shepherd Nation is working on behalf of you, protecting your interests, which is actually your faces that are yet beneath the earth. So Terry Lilley is doing the same thing also. The rest of us, we're trying to get up to that pace, to that place where we can do and be as much as a human being as we possibly can for our Mother Earth. And so wherever you are, if you can rise, if you are working 40 hours a week, if you can take 1 hour out of that work week of yours to assist, if it's Terry Lilley, if it's the Sea Shepherd Nation, if it's us, if you can rise 1 hour a week to assist the people that you see that are gathered, then this will bring the burden, it will lower the burden on each of our shoulders. So I'll leave it there. Like to hear, I don't know, maybe from Donovan, if we could hear from what's happening on the ground there with the people as to the relationship with the waters and what Terry is relating.
Thank you, Josh. Aloha.
Donovan, are you there?
Sorry, I had a phone call interrupted me. Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? All right, there we go. Sorry, I had phone call interrupted. You know, business and life doesn't stop when we get on the Zoom sometimes. What did I miss? I heard that well, let me just explain a little bit about myself and my role on the planet at the moment. My specialty, what I'm most active in, is community organizing. As a native person to Hawaii, Kanaka Maole, my concerns are everything that has to do with our land, water, resources, all the resources, our native rights here in Hawaii. And as you folks are learning now, the island that I live on and all of Hawaii has basically been turned into a giant military base. Kauai is the #1 largest military experimental facility. We also house the Pacific Missile Range facility, and they control all of the weaponry that's pointed outwards towards America's perceived enemies. And unfortunately, they are so covert, you probably were on a military base. And so I have access to upwards of 14,000 people on my mailing list who I communicate with and can greatly contribute to disseminating information. My main focus, the four corner posts of the causes that I champion are water issues, land issues, pesticide use issues, and our native rights issues. So this cause that Terry and Anika's brought to everyone's attention is very much so in line with what I champion for, and I feel that I could probably contribute greatly towards community building. That is one of now I'm working with Pesticide Action Network as in heading their Save Our Keiki campaign here in Hawaii. So a lot dedicated to tracking legislation and the bills that people are introducing to our state government and making sure or lobbying for the ones that we want and being sure to be a voice of opposition for those bills that hinder our native rights and abuse our resources here in Hawaii. So I'm happy to take on more responsibility and make room for aiding in this cause however I can. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. And it's a pleasure to be here on this Zoom conversation in the presence of so many Aina warriors.
I have a question for you right now, for something that you can do. What I want to know is, do you have access or can you contact one of the traditional leaders representing the original peoples there so that we can network together from the voice of the original peoples combined with what Terry's doing, with what Paul Watson is doing within the Sea Shepherd Nation? This will make us a more solid joint voice together.
I could definitely reach out to some of our elders here in Hawaii. I am recognized as a cultural practitioner, and I'm recognized as one of the people who pretty much an advisor to our people here in Hawaii. So I do function in a representatory role quite often. I've traveled to universities to speak on behalf of our people and attended conferences around the country and the world representing Hawaiian issues and causes. And so I feel pretty confident that I'm able to speak on behalf of our people, but I would most certainly will be reaching out to some of our elders or kupuna and see if any of them would like to participate in this action building that's going on right here.
Okay, then this is what I suggest also right here from this point, from the original peoples in Hawaii and the original peoples here within the Kanienkehaka Nation, that together we will jointly put out a statement or an endorsement of not only the Sea Shepherd Nation, but what Terry Lilley is doing also, and from here could possibly branch into greater levels, you know, to bring more of the original peoples from everywhere to work with the non-native people who are putting their lives on the line. I know, Terry, like what you said, that you were basically killed. I know that Paul, I know that he put his life on the line many times. And this is not recognized enough by the original people. When the original peoples are standing for our territories, there is still a separation between us and the non-native people who are actually on the same levels. And in a lot of cases, the non-native people are more advanced in those areas than the original peoples are. So if we can, from here together, make this network begin from within the original native people who are putting their lives on the line. If we can, and we are together again getting an echo. Make this network begin. I don't know why that's happening. Okay, anyways, I guess you all get the idea of what I'm saying here. That Donovan, if you can work on that on your end, I will say to you that by next Friday, when, Terry, you should have a weekly synopsis, Paul, if you can, by that time. By next Friday, we will have a statement prepared and ready to identify that we are engaging. This is something that everybody on the planet needs to hear, especially the people in Europe and Asia and that side of the world. They need to hear that the non-native people and the native people here are engaging together in something that is solid, and that we are not just sitting on our asses looking out for our own interests, but that we are looking out for the interests of not only our own peoples, but all the peoples and all life of our Mother Earth. So by next Friday, we will have this statement ready. Donovan, if you can have the same thing from your end, I know that this will be a boost to everybody.
Compose a press release statement that can be added to the group statement. And I will work on that over the weekend and email that over to whomever will be handling that. I'm sure Anik can get me that information later.
Yeah, Anik will be our contact person here. This is her lead. I mean, if it wasn't for Anik, we wouldn't be sitting here talking with each other right now and everybody here on this level. So, Anik, good work. This is going to be your arm now for you to handle these things.
Well, I'm very honored. I have only people that I admire and love and been close to. Donovan, thank you so much for everything that you do on the island. Terry, there's no words to describe how much admiration. You know, you were my family for 2 years and we worked together very closely, and I had to leave very, very fast. I don't want to get into that, but now that I had to leave the island because I was a non-immigrant alien, and I had to leave because there's not bridges being built, it's walls. I'm even stronger on this side because now, as you can see, I'm with my family, and I could still speak to my family over there. So this is marvelous. So, okay, I'm gonna, just keep on doing the emails so we can continue being gathered together. So like Stuart says, by next Friday, if everybody wants to just put a little statement of their, not their intention, but like the actions and everything that needs to be put in order. And if we need to do another Zoom also, Donovan, I think it would be important to just do some KKCR, just radio. I also contacted some journalists also. What is her name? I'm so horrible. I never forget a face. I never forget anybody, but I'm not always super good with the names. What is the journalist that I told you before, Terry, from the garden?
From the Garden Island?
Yes.
Well, I know all the editor of the Garden Island and Jessica and all the people there really well.
Jessica, well, she was one of my roommates when I was living in Hawaii, so I have some super contacts also with them. So I sent it her way. And,
well, we've got lots of support when we want to utilize the media here in Hawaii. I mean, I've done, I think, 120 news stories about the ocean here in Hawaii from, the main TV station in the Garden Island, and they all, by the way, the Garden Island folks, they all support KKCR and all the incredible things that Donovan and the people do at KKCR. It's an amazing radio station. And so I think we could get a lot of support from all those folks.
Super.
Terry,
and, yeah, go ahead.
Terry, I want to ask you a question, if you could give this information. I know you said there's different animal life that is being affected by these things. When I heard the different military testings that you said was happening, I was like, wow, couldn't believe that stuff, like the different weaponry that they're testing. Can you identify the sea life or whatever other life is being directly affected and killed off by these testings?
Yeah, absolutely. And My expertise, by the way, is kind of electromagnetic frequency communication in between living creatures. So bioelectrical patterns, how do you intercommunicate with a dolphin or a whale? And I know this sounds kind of funny, but Elisa and Anik could tell you that I grew up with animals all my entire lifetime, and no one even knew I could speak human until I was about 12 years old. And so I've learned to speak and intercommunicate with the sea creatures, and I actually even teach a class on it, and I'm very good at it. So we use a certain pattern of wavelengths. I just call it a telephone call. If you want to talk to the local whale or sea turtle or tiger shark, you need to get its phone number. And you can intercommunicate with each other. And I go out and do this even at nighttime with the lights off in the water all by myself and deal with the sharks and the whales and the turtles and all that. So that's my forte in life, is teaching people these interspecies communications. Now, that's all done through certain wavelengths, okay? Wavelengths of energy. It's also done through the space in between vibrational matter and what Einstein and Tesla would call the void. This is where dolphins communicate with each other and communicate with people. They don't have to store knowledge in that fourth level of their brain because they're always interconnected through the void. And it does not have any distance, any barriers of time and distance whatsoever. All indigenous peoples knew this. Native Americans knew it. I've lived in these cultures around the world. They all knew how to intercommunicate with all ever living beings, and even non-living, creatures, non-living systems. So the bottom line is the Navy and the military are putting out electronic surveillance here in Kauai. This surveillance is an underwater and above water electronic net utilizing microwave frequencies, other electromagnetic frequencies. Now they do this as a jamming device. Therefore, other militaries, Chinese, North Koreans, Iranians, Russians, cannot spy on their missile base here. So they call it hardening of the grid. And they're laying an underwater electronic net all throughout the Hawaiian Islands, especially in Kauai and in Oahu. What this does is this severs that interspecies communication. The whales can't talk with the dolphins can't talk with the sharks can't talk with the sea turtles. So they're all going friggin' crazy because of this constant electromagnetic frequency that's being discharged in the water. Now, at the same time, the coral reefs were all dying, and so I brought in a bunch of really high-tech chemists and physicists. These are top people, 2 Nobel Prize winners. And what they found out, we went out on the coral reef on the North Shore of Kauai. We put electronic detection equipment on the reef. Now, there should be no electrical discharge onto a coral reef. That shouldn't exist. That's not harmonious with the way a coral reef system works. Okay, they intercommute with sound and they intercommute with bioelectricity. Now, what happened? Those electronic devices within 2 weeks dissolved, completely dissolved. So what we did is we took coral samples legally with the USGS. We found out that the structure, the calcium carbonate structure of the coral was dissolving. And electricity added into salt water grounds out on the reef, and it creates what's called marine corrosion. So the electrical discharge from this military surveillance systems is grounding out on the reef, dissolving the calcium carbonate structure of the coral itself. And that's what caused this coral disease to spread all throughout Kauai that I've discovered and labeled called, it's a black band coral disease. It's a cyanobacteria. And it went ballistic. It was on the front cover of the LA Times. It was on CNN News of all these dead corals in Kauai, and no one could figure out why they died. So you take this electromagnetic net and these electromagnetic weapons, interrupts the fabric of all life, of all living creatures. Donovan knows this probably better than anyone in the Hawaiian Islands, the culture of the Hawaiians in the Kumulipo, and all of the interrelationship between the haulau, the butterfly fish that looks like the flower of the haubush. You know, all of the creatures here are interconnected, and these microwaves, electromagnetic energy, breaks that interconnection then the whole entire ecosystem falls apart. And that's what we're seeing here in Kauai. The military just wants to say, oh, we're just talking about sonar, which is sound vibration, and we have a permit to use sonar. Well, the bottom line, they don't have a permit to use sonar and kill sea turtles, of which I just videoed the other day. They don't have a permit to use that high frequency sonar in 10 feet of water and blow my ears out like they did the other day and almost kill me while I'm diving. So they're lying about the use of their own permit. But the military has no environmental impact statement, no habitat conservation plan under the Endangered Species Act to use electromagnetic weapons and surveillance underwater. Zero. And it's going to destroy the entire fabric of life here if we don't get this out to the right people to get it stopped. And it can be stopped legally, by the way.
I have two questions for you based on what you just said. In order for me to understand, for anybody, I think you're speaking kind of scientifically, so it might be hard for people to understand, but this is the way that I am understanding. So you tell me if I'm wrong. When you're speaking of this electromagnetic net that they're putting there now in the waters, to me, what I am seeing, it's basically like the equivalent of cementing the waters, where the life forms cannot communicate. And if they cannot communicate, especially knowing that they only have light, maybe a few hours out of the day, actually. Now, if they cannot communicate through their regular sonar, regular processes, then what could that actually mean at some point? Maybe a whale and a shark or a dolphin could actually just bang into each other?
Yeah, I've got video of it. I have video right in the middle of the electronics of 10 different sharks running directly right into the coral reef. I've got actual video of all this stuff. And it's one of the greatest studies that I did, and I'll send a copy to all of you folks. I did it with Scripps Institute. It's called the acoustical footprint of a coral reef. We laid very high-tech equipment on islands in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, on Kauai, on Oahu. We laid this equipment down. I did a movie on it with Scripps. And the equipment stayed on the seafloor for 2 weeks, and it picked up every acoustical sound on the coral reef. There was something like 13 trillion bits of data that they picked up on each coral reef. So the lobsters talk to the corals talk to the crabs. Every one of them, and this is just through acoustics only, sound. This is just sound. And so the coral polyp goes by, the baby coral, it puts out a song to the reef. It sings to the reef. And the reef sings back in the right way. The baby coral knows to attach to the reef there and grow on the reef. So trillions of bits of acoustical data is going back and forth. In this study, it's amazing. We could tell if the lobsters were talking to the whales, if the dolphins were talking to the fish. So they all utilize this. Now, in this report, when the military went through and started using their sonar, every system stopped. And they could actually tell how a reef became sick by its sound because of the military activity. We did this at Tunnels Reef, Makua Reef on the north shore of Kauai, where I did my movies of the military killing the turtles and the whales and the sharks and the coral reefs. So that's how detailed the science is here now on showing how this interrupts all of the activity. No different than you and I talking right now through a frequency. I've got a transmitter, you've got a receiver, you got a transmitter, I got a receiver. We're talking through a time barrier, you're in a different time zone, okay? And we're talking over a frequency that's going through the atmosphere. Now, if someone comes in here and blasts the whole area with microwaves, you and I stop talking. It's going to ruin that frequency, so you and I can't connect. So that's the way I kind of teach it to the kids, is how they would use a cell phone and call their buddies in a different time zone, in a different part of the world, and be able to talk. But then once again, you come in and blast all that with microwaves and other electromagnetic frequencies. that breaks those frequencies, those bonds between us living creatures. And then all of a sudden, we don't know what the hell we're doing. And yeah, you and I could run into each other because we don't know each other's even there. So it's really important. This is going to affect the oceans all around the world. It doesn't get a handle on it.
The way that I understand this is that for you and I, like the example you gave, well, if somebody hit us with microwaves, well, our communication would be disrupted. For you and I, our lives are not dependent on our communication, but I know that in the areas that you were talking about, every single living thing there, their lives are dependent on their intercommunication. So
yeah. Yeah. Go
ahead. Oh, you're out. Can't hear you.
Get this one. We did a test at one point in time in Los Angeles with the Huna group, very ancient Egyptian. It's kind of the precursors of the kahunas here in Hawaii. And we did studies of frequencies in the air. In Los Angeles, there was about 50,000 impulses bombarding our body every second. Microwaves, radio waves, television waves, God knows what, all kinds of crazy stuff. It's no small wonder in Los Angeles, in a big city, why you have a hard time meditating and communicating with each other through meditation. Why you have a hard time of communicating with the bear or the hummingbird or the mountain lion. Why people don't know that they're there in their own backyards, because they're bombarded with all these electromagnetic frequencies. I moved to Hawaii to get away from that. When I first came to Hawaii, the military wasn't doing this. Why do the Hawaiians, all these years, 3,000 miles in the middle of the ocean, know how to intercommunicate with all living creatures here? They all lived as one system, one body. They were just cells of an individual whole body here. They could do that because of the isolation of the Hawaiian Islands. And that's why people came to Hawaii all these years to heal. Because when you get back in the frequencies of nature, your body starts vibrating with healthy frequencies, not the unhealthy frequencies of a city full of electromagnetics. Now people come to Hawaii here and they get sick, they don't heal. Because the military is bombarding that interconnection. The Hawaiians, I've been all around the world studying undersea animals. And I mean, I've done mountain lion studies in Idaho. You know, I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. I've done shark studies off Australia. I mean, all around the world, animals and interspecies communication. And the Hawaiians had that interspecies communication better than any culture I've ever known. It was more in depth and more in detail. That's why you could never, you know, alter a waterway in Hawaii, because they knew how that affected the coral reef. They knew how that affected all the different plants. They knew all those detailed interconnections because they lived in such a pure environment that was far away from everywhere, so they could really develop those interconnections. It's really a travesty that this stuff's happening here in used to be one of the purest places in the world. And at the same time, I also look at it as a little bit of a positive and opportunity, because we're kind of a sealed ecosystem here. And so we can figure out how to deal with this stuff and we can make a change. It's a little harder to do when you're living in the mainland, where there's Detroit on one side and Chicago on the other side. See what I mean? You're in the middle of a constant war zone. Whatever happens here in Hawaii stays in Hawaii. And so it is kind of I mean, if you got to look at the blessing and the beautiful side of all of this, it's happening in a place that can be kind of controlled, where we can study it, deal with it, get it stopped, and maybe teach the rest of the world what the heck's going on and set an example for everyone. So that's why I just so honor you and Anik and Paul and all of these people and Donovan, because I believe that Kauai is the center of this rebirth of the universe and reconnection, interconnection with species on this planet. And I really think we can make it work here with all of your help.
Okay,
And
my second question to you, based on what you had said prior about the electromagnetic field, I think you said, whatever it was that was being done on the coral reefs. when it started to deteriorate. For me, like for a lay person to understand that, is that the equivalent of like the coral reefs, like just rusting away, like the way we would imagine like an electrical, maybe our computer just rusting away?
You know, that's a great analogy, and it actually does look like rust. When calcium's metal, by the way, calcium carbonate, when it breaks down with electronics in marine corrosion, the whole reef out here turned red. I mean, it rusted. It was, you ought to see I'll send my videos over to you. I have before and after videos. It's unreal what it looks like. But the bottom line is that the way that the electromagnetic radiation harmed the coral reef, and I'll send you a study on that, we called it the AIDS, AIDS, the AIDS of the coral. So when corals started to get infected with this black band coral disease, we did 500 coral samples with the USGS and head of infectious disease department. I got some unbelievably talented people that I've been working with on this. And we found out that all the corals had a compromised immune system because this coral disease, this cyanobacterial disease, in 2 years ate up and killed over 80% of the corals. And so when we found out what the disease was, it wasn't the disease that was killing the corals. Remember when AIDS first came into being? People were dying of tuberculosis. They were dying of pneumonia. Okay, well, what they were really dying of is they had a compromised immune system. So we found out the electronics bombarding the reef constantly break down the calcium carbonate structure. It compromises the immune system of the coral, and then the native bacteria just come in and gobble it all up.
Okay, Paul, I'd like to ask you a question on this, on what he said. I know that all the years that you've been on the ocean, I know that being in adjacent to whaling fleets, whaling ships, that I know they must emit sonar. Have you any experience with that, like directly having effect to like isolated areas and isolated species of marine biology?
Well, what I've seen is that anywhere that the military has done testing, and specifically in areas that I've seen off Cape Verde, off New Zealand, and in different areas, that after every like major test, there is mass strandings. And for a long time, if it was on U.S. shores, the U.S. government would not even allow autopsies of the whales or the dolphins. In fact, it was Ken Belcom who was able to first examine one of the whales because it was in the Canary Islands. And he found that the cause of death is that the eardrums had been burst on this. So anytime we've been able to examine whales or dolphins outside of the U.S., that's what we found. But the United States will not allow autopsies on these animals. So, you know, I mean, the U.S. is not a democracy. I mean, Princeton University 4 years ago said that we're an oligarchy, and it's run by, as Bernie Sanders would say, the 1%. They get what they want. What I can offer with Sea Shepherd is, you know, Sea Shepherd is not an organization. It's actually a movement. We're about 42 different entities in 42 different countries. And but we have this thing called Sea Shepherd Global, which is our communications between all of those entities. So getting the information, getting the video, I can get them to all those different countries and see what they can do as far as getting it to their local medias and that. But yeah, it's important. I mean, the ocean's affected by, I mean, we've got acidification, we got climate change, we got plastic pollution, we got radiation coming in from Fukushima. You know, we got sonar, we got electromagnetic pollution, chemicals, oil spills. I mean, we're really destroying the ocean. And what I say all the time is that if the ocean dies, we all die. We don't live on this planet with a dead ocean. And it has to be addressed. It was very frustrating at the COP21 conference in Paris when I tried to bring this to people's attention. I said, look, you know, we need a 50-year moratorium at least on all this industrial activity, industrial fishing and everything like this. And that's not what they want to hear. They don't want to hear that at all. They don't want to hear solutions. All these government entities, they get together, they have wonderful photo ops, and they all pat each other on the back about all the wonderful things they're going to do. Like, for instance, Justin Trudeau was going to save the planet until he got back home. But so what we have to understand is that these people don't care. They simply don't care. And that's a reflection of this anthropocentric mindset that has polluted our species for thousands of years. And, we just simply don't care. And that's why I've always said that we have to develop a biocentric perspective on life and ourselves and our place in all of this. Because we are interdependent. The 3 laws of ecology are the law of diversity, the law of interdependence, the law of finite resources. And we forget that a lot of these species, if they disappear, we disappear too. A couple of years ago, I had Fox News take me to task because I said worms and bees and trees were more important than people. And they said, well, how can you say something so outrageous as to say they're more important than people? I said, well, I can say it because it's a fact. They can live here without us. We can't live here without them. We need them. They don't need us. And that's the understanding, I think, that we have to instill amongst people if we're going to survive.
I'm going to share something with you right now. I'm sure you've seen it or you've heard about it already. It's something that Iceland is doing. Is it shared? Can you see it? Uh-oh, what did I do? Okay.
Go to all the screen.
We see it.
I'm trying to share it. Do you? What is happening?
We see it.
Okay, something's happened here. What did happen?
Is everybody seeing the whale?
How do I fix it?
I can see it, yes.
Okay,
how do I fix the screen? Okay, but anyways, something that you brought, what you're making me learn is that all the estuaries, all the rivers that flow into the great rivers, that flow into the oceans, Terry, you just made me see something as to how, like 2 years ago, there was an issue here in Montreal, where Montreal was releasing billions of liters of raw sewage into the so-called St. Lawrence River. And now it's happening in Quebec City. And of course, all of that, as we know, is going right into the ocean through the so-called Gulf of St. Lawrence. But when you were explaining this to me of how they don't allow even rivers to be diverted, or streams even in Hawaii, you're giving me a greater understanding here of these things, able to put it more into, I guess, a localized perspective for me to understand greater. And if you're making me understand greater here today, then I'll guarantee you that whoever is watching, maybe there's at least one person who's getting a greater understanding. And so therefore, whoever is gonna watch this or learn from this, it's great work. Then otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to gotten that understanding to people. But it made me also think about, we're hearing more and more about animal attacks upon humans. So I never really equated the things that you're saying on these levels of like microwaves and all of that stuff. I've never equated that into the picture. But now it's understandable. How come more and more mountain lions are attacking people? Bears are attacking people. More and more, anyways, animals like this. Humans are creating such circumstances that absolutely the whole ecosystem is going to turn against us. Whether or not they want to, it's like as if we are making them, causing them to turn against us. This is, I think back to something that I heard the first time that I heard you speak, Paul, when we were at that, what the heck was that, Sierra Club of Canada thing, when you were telling me your story about when you see the sea turtles come up. I know that creation has communicated with us since day one. And the more that we separate ourselves from that communication, it's like a mother trying to communicate with their children. And the mother may be on the line wanting to communicate, but if the children are not there to communicate, the mother's heart is going to be broken. And if that communication isn't there, it's like the children are no longer going to be a part of that of that ecosystem, that we are creating a circumstance and conditions that is getting to I'd say getting to a precipice. We are at a breaking point. And I would say that maybe the fact that we are here talking today about this, that like what you said, Terry, that you've seen Hawaii as being the center point of where maybe it'll all return. It seems like, well, we're all together here because of what's happening there today, what you've been bringing to the attention of the people. And this may be returning this communication back with our mother. I gotta thank you very much for this work. But Terry, I will say I've heard Anik identify to us that you go out there and sometimes you are scuba diving by yourself. I got to say to you, you cannot do that anymore. You have to have somebody with you. We can't afford to lose somebody like you. We can't afford to lose somebody like Paul. You know, I know, Paul, if it wasn't for a bulletproof vest, you might not be here today. So we can't afford to lose people such as you. We can't afford to lose the people who are fighting for everybody on our Mother Earth. So again, I'll just revert to like what we said earlier. We need people to come forward, to rise and to assist. So if there's somebody out there in your territory that can assist Terry, that if it's you can go along with him.
Cannot do that anymore.
Scuba dive with him. Again, I'm getting
Forward.
echo.
To
Be there with him when he's
if there's
scuba
somebody
diving.
out there
If
in your territory,
even if not to scuba dive with him, at least maybe I'm sure you got a boat there while you're scuba diving. If somebody else, you know, could be there, somebody other than the people that you are normally with, because we need to have people who can share this on levels of that it's not being shared yet. You know, so let's say maybe, like we said, 40 hours a week, somebody's working 40 hours a week. Maybe it's a banker. Maybe that banker can take an hour off and go and assist Terry and maybe scuba dive with him, and or just to be there, so that if and when something happens to Terry, that maybe that banker can carry some kind of credibility in sharing that information with other people. Anyways, I'll leave it there. I wanted to ask, I didn't hear much from Eliza. I wanted to ask you, are you a scuba diver?
No, I'm not.
What is your what is your role? What do you bring to the table?
Well, Terry and I and Nick 3 years ago were working together very hard in Reef Guardians, the organization that Terry had put together. And we, the main function that we did was fundraising. I think our intention was to be able to hire Earth Justice in order to expose and make some headway that way. So and I went with Terry on different talks that he gave and was able to, pass out his literature and sell his sell his products as photographs. And so just making people aware and fundraising was the function that I feel like I was called into.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is it something that you've already done, or is this something new that we're talking about, like to solicit people to come and help?
Do I solicit people to come and help?
Yeah, is it something new? Have you done it before, or is it something new that we're talking about just now?
I think that might be something new. And Nick, feel free to chime in. I know that we were working, as a cohesive group, mostly, like I said, just for the role of fundraising. But absolutely, I'm willing to work in any role that serves this purpose. And if it's gathering people, whatever it is, I'm willing to do it.
Okay, well, I'll suggest that to you also. You heard what I said also already, but I would suggest that you start to look in that area of raising, also while you're raising funds, try to raise that physical people to identify that people can come, because like Paul, when he was here, he identified to us that if we ever had anybody who was capable-bodied to go on a Sea Shepherd, he identified that. People, we need people all the time. So I know that if that was applicable to the Sea Shepherd Nation, I know you say it's an organization. I'll keep saying you're a nation. I know that that would be also something that you could do for use there.
Yeah, actually, I said it wasn't an organization. We're actually a movement.
Okay, a movement.
Yeah. The other thing I think we should keep in mind is the fact that this illegal activity by the United States Navy shouldn't be surprising. The very occupation of Hawaii is illegal. Even the United States Congress has recognized that, although they didn't do anything about it. So, you know, they just walk all over the law. I mean, we're seeing this right now in Canada with the pipelines just walking over the Wet'suwet'en Nation people's territory, just digging up wherever they want and keeping people off of their own land. And yet the government of Canada backs that 100%, although at the same time they're talking about reconciliation and everything else. But just it's a history really of just of bullshit, really, you know, by governments. That's all. That's what they're famous for doing. We can't expect them to. We shouldn't be surprised, I say, at what they do. And the other thing I'd like to stress is the fact that our species, we have this incredible ability to adapt to diminishment. As things become more diminished, we simply just accept it, and we forget what happens. I mean, there used to be belugas in Long Island Sound. There used to be walrus on Sable Island. There used to be sea minks and Newfoundland wolves and so many eastern pumas, eastern bisons. They're all gone. And the real tragedy is that most people don't even recognize that they were ever here. We're lost touch with that reality. We don't care. I mean, and this adaptation to diminishment, for instance, you know, in the 1960s, if I were to tell you if you're buying water in plastic bottles and paying more for that than the equivalent amount of gasoline, you would have looked at me like I was crazy. Who is going to do that? But now everybody just does it. It's this adaptation to diminishment. So as things are diminished, we just seem to accept it, and that includes the destruction of ecosystems. And we think we're immortal, that we're going to survive outside of the context of the biosphere, but that's where we're going to be very, very rudely awakened with an ecological collapse, and it will happen, and it will happen within 100 years.
So I think it's very clear here. I mean, for me, it's been very clear, but I think we're getting I'll say key minds are getting a larger understanding of what is really happening to us. And when I say us, I don't mean humans. I mean us in our Mother Earth. Is that we are being assaulted by a mentality. The mentality flows through us. And what that mentality is war. And everywhere that are, in every area that our so-called technology, science is developing, it is developing through our war aggression upon everything else. So whether it is the coral reef in Hawaii, the coral reef in off the coast of Australia, whether it's the whales, no matter what it is on this planet, it is being assaulted, attacked by war. And this is the thing that we got to understand. Even the smallest environmentalist trying to protect the creek in their backyard, they are up against war. We got to understand this, because so often we are, I'll say, like our sisters and brothers in so-called Peru, that when our sisters and brothers stand up to protect the environment, they think that they can stand there with a protest sign and say, hey, like they got the right to protest. Hey, protect this river or protect this forest. When actually they're up against war. Those people are getting killed. And so again, I'll say, I know, Paul, you came close many times to losing your life because you were up against war. Terry, when you were dead on the gurney, you were there because you were up against war. So if we understand all together that that's what we are up against, then we will fortify ourselves. We won't allow ourselves to walk into a trap or scuba dive into a trap. We will then be fortified with other people who can assist us, other people that even if one of us gets killed, that we will be so fortified that the next one will be able to carry the torch, not halfway, but all the way just as much. We need to train people. We need to train more and more people for what is really happening to us on our Mother Earth. There is something that is attacking us. And I don't think as a species we have yet put our finger on it to completely understand what it is. But I'll say today that by speaking everybody together here, you have given at least me a better understanding. So again, Nyawagoa, I would say, unless there's something else that anybody has to offer here, then I would say that for this week, we bring it to an end. Maybe we look at, maybe, I don't know if this is possible for you, but I would say that if maybe through this network that we were talking about, if we can speak at least once a moon, this is what all the people on our Mother Earth need. They need to see the lead taken. And they need to see the lead taken by people who are serious, not by people who are dependent on how much dollars they're getting out of this organization or that organization to keep going. Because I know, Paul, you didn't need that. I know, Terry, you didn't need that. I know it would assist us, but we need to train people to stand just as strong as you did for the same exact reasons that you did.
If I could add one thing here is that what I say to every crew member, and we've had over 5,000 that have participated on the ships, and the one thing I ask them before they can join is this: are you willing to risk your life for a whale? And if they say no, then I said, well, then you shouldn't participate with us. And when people say, well, that's asking an awful lot from people, I said, no. We ask young people to not only risk their life, but to kill people for oil wells and for real estate and for religion. I think it's a far more noble cause to risk your life to defend a whale. And what you call war, I've always referred to as the insanity of humanity. And the cure to that is a biocentric point of view, that we have to understand where we really belong, and that is in interdependence with all other creatures.
I have a question right now for actually for Paul and for Terry, and maybe you can both give me an answer one after the other. There was this article. It's Jenny Lyons from the Public Affairs Officer. She quoted, "There is no special mitigation area in Kauai." What does that mean exactly?
No special mitigation area?
There is no special mitigation area in Kauai. That's Jenny Lyons from the Public Affairs Office at the NOAA. She said that, you remember a couple of years ago, they brought in the boats of NOAA, and they were taken over to see what was happening, and they were kind of like studying what you were saying, and then they just left. And then there was this article in the papers, and it was on Facebook. I actually posted it on my page today. Actually, I found it again. Let me see. Kauai waters aren't on the list of biologically important areas, according to Jenny Lyons, Public Affairs Office for NOAA, who confirmed Thursday there is no special mitigation area of Kauai. It's the new rules for the Navy. Federal Ocean Management official that was in the Garden Island, remember?
And I can explain that to you if you'd like. And this is really important, I think, for anyone that's dealing with the United States. And like Paul said, the United States is not a legitimate entity anymore, in my opinion, at all. And they're violating their own laws in every single direction possible. But the bottom line is that Kauai was excluded from critical habitat of the beaked whale, of the monk seal, of all of the endangered species, Kauai was left out of the critical habitat area for the purpose of PMRF missile base military operations. Now, that decision that was done by NOAA Marine Fisheries is a violation of the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act. I mean, I used to teach environmental law. I mean, I had an environmental law school. I was taught by Craig Potter, who wrote the Endangered Species Act. And I've worked with Earth Justice on this. It's just we don't really know what to do about it. The bottom line is that nobody in the United States law has the right to void out the Endangered Species Act or the Marine Mammal Protection Act or the Clean Water Act except by the President of the United States of America, and that person has to declare martial law. And that hasn't happened here. So what Trump did is Trump declared PMRF and Kauai operations now classified. So even under Freedom of Information Act, we can't get any information of what's going on here with the military in Kauai anymore. I only just shoot video of all the dead animals, so you know I can figure it out. But the bottom line is it's not legal to exclude Kauai, because if you consider Hawaii part of the United States of America, it still falls underneath those two very powerful laws. So the bottom line is occupation by the Navy here in Kauai is illegal even by their own laws, completely, 100%. But there is nobody here in Kauai from the federal government to enforce the federal laws. So they just get away with it.
Terry, can you explain the radio? You know, when we had someone from one of the missile councils. He was like a missile. Remember the radio that we did, and then we brought in the Endangered Species Act in court after and all. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I showed up. Tulsi Gabbard helped me set up a meeting with commander of the military base here, Brian Hay. Or Bruce Hay.
Brian Hay, forgot his name.
Yeah. And so anyway, I went out to the PMRF military base and gave a lecture to all the top brass. It was set up by Admiral Harris, head of the Pacific Fleet. And I showed all my underwater movies how in Kauai here they were killing the coral reefs with their electronics and their Navy and weapons operations. So Commander Hay on the radio station flat out said, "We agree with Mr. Lilley. We don't even have anybody underwater here studying the effects of our electronic war testing." He said it right on live radio. And I sit there and I said, okay, it's against the law to kill an entire coral reef system. And I had video of them killing the turtles and the pilot whales. And right on the airway, I said, this is all a violation of your own laws here on Kauai, and you're just admitting it. And you know what Commander Hayes said? Terry, you have to realize we pay the bills for the government here. Now get this. So the guy, I called Earth Justice. This has all been recorded. The guy should have been arrested and gone off and hit. That's like saying, okay, I just robbed a bank and killed 20 people, but I pay the sheriff's income, so screw you guys. Well, anyway, they dumped Commander Hay. He disappeared completely after that, and now they have a new commander at the base. And now the entire operation is classified by Trump, and they won't talk to anybody about anything. So that's what happened after that meeting.
He disappeared.
For me, what that shows is that we've been saying this forever. The reality of the so-called United States and Canada is that have always been under martial law. It's never been, you have never not been under martial law. But if you still have access to that particular audio, then we can use that. But also what we need to look at here is how then can we exploit that special exclusion that Kauai has from the Endangered Species Act? How is it that martial law can be applied there without it actually being declared, where the public is not aware of it?
The public really needs to be aware of this, because the bottom line is, and it's really in politics right now with the Trump administration, because there's a rogue president for the United States that's going beyond the bounds of their own Constitution. Okay, that's just bottom line. Everyone's seeing this stuff every single day. And people are really, really worried about what martial law would be like if it was legally declared. Well, it is declared in Kauai right now. They voided out all federal law here in Kauai. We are under martial law. If you or I was to go out and, you know, and Donovan, representing the Hawaiian people, he's got his hands full more than anyone I know of on this planet, to be honest with you. Because there's a lot of Hawaiian people here that used to eat the sea turtles. And they're sitting there and saying, well, we got a lot of sea turtles around. We'd like to eat some of them. That's part of our culture. But if they did that, they'd be arrested by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and thrown in prison. And then they're sitting here and watching the U.S. military go by with their submarines and killing sea turtles right and left with no response. We filed 100. I was a part of half of this. I've got all these letters. Every one of these I can send you. I filed over 125 Endangered Species Violation Act violations with the head of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the head of Kauai, or State of Hawaii DLNR, and the head of NOAA and the head of EPA. I have every one of them showing exactly in the law where they were violating the military here in Kauai. Not one of those agencies even answered their responses.
Well, Terry, I didn't have any response from John Ewald, Jenny Lyons, Catherine Brogan, and also Keith Swindle, James Ashburner, Eric Marek, and Sheila O'Connor. I've been sending emails to every single one of them, and I did not get any response whatsoever.
Well, I talked a lot of those people, and Keith Swindle, head of Fish and Wildlife for the Pacific region, including the head of NOAA here for Pacific region. I used to talk to all these folks every month to get an update, all the way back since about 2012 of what the military was doing. Now, I had an official meeting with the heads of NOAA here in Lihue about 6 months ago, and they said, and I quote, I got this on video, by the way, they said, Mr. Lilley, all of the activities in Kauai and PMF are now classified, so we cannot talk about them. So all of the federal officials now are out of the game here in Kauai. It's just the people here in Kauai, the military, and our elected officials that under the Endangered Species Act are supposed to see that the laws are enforced, and they're not doing it. So no one's going to respond at this point in time. They've all got a gag order.
Okay.
So Paul, what is your input on this with all this information we're gathering? What do you think the action should be from now on? Now, we all know that, you know, they're not respecting the Endangered Species Act. They do laws, but then they go against their own laws. We understand what's going on. What's the next step, Paul?
Well, as far as I can see, all we can really do is disseminate as much information on this, as much film as possible globally. You know, I mean, we can't do anything about it because it's the United States Navy. I'll take on whaling fleets, but I won't get very far taking on the U.S. Navy. You know, we have to fight them with the cameras, and we have to fight them with the pen, and that's the way it has to be. And I'll certainly do everything I can to get that information out to as many people globally as I can.
There is, I'd like to answer that. There is something that we can do, but it is on a higher level than which we are speaking of. The military in every country is pushing the limits of everything, everywhere. The human experience as we know it, like you said, Paul, has been diminishing because less and less life forms are alive every generation. And as you said, we're used to it. You know, it's like if we had 100 friends last week and this week we only got 10 friends, it's like we're not paying attention. What happened to the other 90? What happened to all of our friends? Where have they gone? We're just too accustomed to accepting everything that's shoved down our throats. And how it's being shoved down our throats, I'll say that this is a result of a male-dominant mentality that has crept into absolutely every aspect of our human experience. So I'll tell you what we have started. Last week, we began through, Paul, you know what the two-row wampum is. Through the two-row wampum, we began with the non-native people, the rise of the woman's nation, where the women all around the world will rise through their one singular voice. Now, of course, we're not looking at something that's going to happen next week, but the reality of all these militaries, these are men. These are mad dogs of war that are in those militaries. If we get to half the population, which is women, then women can assert their power and their authority over the men. Because this is the reality of creation, that we are born of mother. We are born of our Mother Earth. We are born of the great spiral of Sky Woman herself. We are within our mother's body. And the authority within our mother is our mother, not male, not the corruption and imbalance of male dominance. So through the rise of a woman's nation, the woman's nation can push the men in absolutely every aspect of where that corruption is. This is, of course, on a larger level, but this is not something that's going to happen overnight. So, of course, like what Paul said, this is the best that we can do right now, things like what we are doing here right now. Again, I'll go back and say that, yes, we can go on, but we'll just go on and on. If there's anything, Paul, I know that Andrea is with us. If there's anything that you want to say directly to her as a result of this conversation, maybe now would be the time, and if not, we'll come to an end.
Well, I think that we're certainly are going to get involved, especially with our people in Hawaii. And so everybody that we do have in Hawaii, if they can, work to get this information out to all of the other people in the Sea Shepherd movement, and that would be very important.
Okay, so
Andrea, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
Okay, Andrea, would you like to speak with us?
Yes, I think I'm sorry if I leave my video off. I think where I am, the signal is better if I don't have my video on.
Okay.
Hi.
Would you like to just present yourself?
Yes, my name is Andrea Gonzalez, and I live on the Big Island of Hawaii. Been living here for the last 3.5 years, and we volunteer with Sea Shepherd. We started 1.5 years ago, I believe. So there's 3 of us here, and we try to basically go everywhere, every event that we can to get as much information about ocean conservancy as possible. I work a lot with children and talking about marine debris, and get children and the youth a little bit more in action about being aware about marine debris and what can be done about it, how to stop it, how we can do things about it. So that's kind of where I stand here. So thank you very much for contacting me through the Facebook page. And we did go last year to the sonar. There was a Navy public hearing here on the Big Island about sonar testing, and we attended it last year, and we sat there and heard what they had to say and asked some questions and spoke against it. And but this was a year ago, and that's when we first were informed about what was going on, and then we got more involved in trying to get people more aware. Honestly, I was impressed about how many people were not aware, given the fact that we live here. So right there in the ocean, so many people are not aware of a lot of things that can be done. Easy steps. They don't have to become, full-on activists, but small steps that they can do in their daily life. So that's where I jump in. I'm here to support as much as we can with the communities. We are very involved with the youth because we have young children ourselves. So we try to think that if we get the message across to the youth, maybe it could start changing faster for this coming generations.
I have something to to ask or to say to you, Andrea, sorry.
Yes.
As you speak with the youth a lot, and as you say, telling stories, I don't know if you know the story that I referred to earlier, the first time that I heard Paul speaking at the Sierra Club of Canada, when he related his story. I think you were going after the Russian whaling fleet, if I'm correct, when all the sea turtles came up in front of you. Do you remember that, Paul?
Oh, I was actually chasing down a pirate whaling ship called the Sierra, and that incident happened the day before I intercepted the Sierra.
Mm-hmm. Andrea, are you aware of that story?
I am not aware of the story, no, and I think I tuned in a bit later in the phone call, so I don't think I heard it.
Okay, I would say, Paul, when you told that story, for me, as one of the original peoples, that story resonated right to my core, because as you were speaking of the turtle, as you know, for us, our Mother Earth has grown upon the turtle's back. And so that, when you were telling that story, I heard the turtle herself speaking to you, crying to you for help to assist. And knowing that what modern science identifies, that we have come out of the waters, I say this is the core of the turtle herself speaking to you. I would say, Andrea, that is the story that you need to share with people. So, Paul, you got to get her that story.
Well, I can just briefly say that. I mean, we left Boston to go hunt for this pirate whaler. We had no idea where it would be. It could be from the north coast of Portugal down to Angola. But we just left, and just one day out of the Azores, after I had stopped in the Azores, I had to stop for a number of hours because of there was all these loggerhead turtles that were in front of us, and I didn't want to run them down. And so we stopped and we swam with them, and then carried on. And the next day, exactly, almost 24 hours later, we intercepted the Sierra. And the chances of finding the vessel were really remote. And if those turtles hadn't have stopped me for those hours, then we would have missed the boat entirely. I remember when I tried to explain that to the port captain in Portugal, he was very mystified, and I just said, the Virgin Mary directed us, so he could understand it. But it's the same thing, really. But it was the turtles that allowed us to intercept the Sierra.
So, Andrea, if you combine Paul's story along with what Terry can relate to you about what he's finding happening to the sea turtles, I would say that you got one hell of a story to capture the minds of the children, capture the minds of all the people. So for me, I'd leave it there. From here, there's two other people that haven't, that are just joining us to watch along and listen. I would say if you have anything to add, to say, and then we'll bring this to an end, if that's okay with everybody.
I had something I wanted to ask Terry, how the IG connecting consciousness of the marine life and the original people and everything, every single living thing, that we're all connected together. The original people, what we do is we're constantly trying to bring back what's essential. We're connected to nature. So the IG connecting consciousness of the marine and the individual, do you think that has something to do with, how can I say that? It's like I'm trying to be scientific and it's not working at all, because that's not what I am. But the reason why people don't care as much, like Paul was saying, like the army and like the government, like they just don't care. Do you think it has something to do with them disconnecting the IG connection, and that's what takes away the consciousness of the humanity? Do you think that's why they're doing like all these military testing in the water? Why are they doing it? That's what I'm trying to figure out in my head.
Well, they've lost their connection with nature. They've lost that interconnection. I've been working with the resonance group in Nassim Harriman, for quite a long time, and He's been studying the interconnected. I did interspecies communication for the group. And he has a movie out, The Connected Universe. And so if you look at a school of fish, a school of manini that are swimming offshore out here, and there's 1,000 fish and they all turn at the same time. We started studying that and found out that they were all turning at exactly the same time. They weren't watching each other turn. They were turning faster than the speed of light. They were all operating as one individual unit. Okay. So if you look at all the humans and all the animals and all the creatures, if you look at that as we're individual cells in one beautiful female body. So we're not separate. We are all together. And we all interconnect and we all can operate and move at the very same time. Now, when you start similar to a tumor in the human body, when part of the body starts vibrating at a frequency that's different than the body itself, then it starts disconnecting that intercommunication between all of the parts of the body. And then that tumor can spread and spread and spread. And so what I teach the kids in my class, I do a lot of classroom studies on this. I say, every time you're with nature, every time you're intermix and out with nature, we have a chant that we do. And it goes Abtek Basan. It's a very ancient Egyptian chant. And it means basically, in between the beats of my heart is the place where love, the still place where love lives. And I give it away to you freely on my breath. That's an interconnection, a reconnection of all living creatures. It's a connection of love, harmony, connection, sustainability. Well, what men have done is they've become a tumor inside this female body of connection, and vibrating with the energies of hate, anger, greed, ownership. And so it's kind of up to us as this individual human body to keep our vibrations pure and connected with each other, keep them connected with harmony and love, and sooner or later we will cause that tumor to get back in line with the female body and vibrate on the same frequency. And it's a way you heal a society, an earth, a human, or even a school of fish that's running into each other because they've lost their connection. So yeah, military operations, all of these things produce energies that disconnect life and disconnect this beautiful female body. And it's up to us to harmonize and bring that back.
Wow. Man, you said that perfect. You said it perfect. When you were talking about all the fishes moving like that, everybody knows it's not because they're looking at each other. If that was the case, they would be moving one after another. They would not be moving together. But that made me think of that how here within the original peoples
vibrate on the same frequency.
Again,
and that's the way you heal like society, a earth moving one after another.
Yeah. That with the original peoples here, especially within the Five Nations Confederacy, that we all move together at the same time, like from the time of the midwinter, what we just had, that the midwinter, that's our New Year's. At the midwinter, we all do the exact same thing, the exact same ceremony. When we're walking in the forest, like right now, and we look up and we see that there's a branch broken and there's water coming out of that branch, we know that it is time to give thanks to the maples, the maple water that begins to flow. We all do this together at the same time. And that, as you said, that is being within the female body. When the female body's heart beats, boom, every particle in the body feels that heartbeat. So everybody paying attention to the heartbeat and the cycles of our Mother Earth, following the cycles of our grandmother Moon, everybody will work back together in harmony with that balance when we are supposed to. So the number one thing that we identify to everybody, especially women, is to get back to the thing that women got killed for in the first place by men. Get back to your moon ceremonies. Get back to honoring your own moon. your moons. The women, when they no longer welcome their young daughters, the young girls, into womanhood, when that young girl experiences her first moon. Nowadays, because of the imbalanced mind of male dominance, it's a thing that's looked down upon. A young girl's moon, when she comes into her womanhood, where her life,
harmony with that balance,
where
right?
her,
We are supposed to
again,
the number one thing,
where the life force,
it's a thing that's looked down upon.
Why is this happening? Where the life force, the life-giving force of all creation, which is exemplified through the women here in our world, in our understanding as humans, it's exemplified into the world through the women's life-giving force. And imagine, we look down upon that. We shun it. We turn our head to it instead of celebrating it. So the women need to get back to their moon ceremonies. They need to get back to honoring, to teaching their own daughters about their own moons. So anyways, again, I'll say we need to move on. There's only two people that didn't say anything. Angel, Marie-Claude, if there's anything you want to throw in, even just as an observance, now's the time, and then we're going to bring this to an end. I know everybody's got stuff to do.
Just very quickly, it's an honor to be here. I'll do everything I can to support this. Of course, I'm part of the Women's Nation. Anik, Edith, Angel are also part of it. And we see great positivity coming from this because it's self-explanatory for the people that are not male dominant. So just to name Women's Nation, people just jump on board. And we just, as Stuart said, we just started this process last week and we already have lots of buzzing. So of course, we'll be happy to update you on this. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm not a big speaker, so I just say thank you, and it's empowering that's what's happening here. And I already contact a few people that work in marine biology, so let's see what it gets us. Thank you.
Okay, so if it's all right with everybody, we're going to bring this to an end, which means we have to, as we've done an opening, we also have to do a closing. So, you do the closing?
Zapotek Nihonsage, Meshika, Wanerista, Yunatahuni, Yunkinestadista, and the Harage Ganosesne, at Nyangahaga Gohnowage, Nuis Nihonsage, and the Warage Gawanoge, the Itinora to Garon Wakaria Gesu, and the Yankisota, Santanaka Garakot, and the Yunkinista, Yuhonsage, and Naguego Scat Negunumwe. The Itinora to Tarunawago, and also Whiskara, Sini, Ganyataragiru, and no Abwe Aquat Side. Teaching Warado, Jacunsis down the Ganawida, the Nawego Diane, the Norodiane, the Yohahio, Ganigurio, the Nogayandawana, Gayanara Saragoa, the Notegini, the Yohade, Ayunki at again Hadanda, where on Hetzer and the Gasatstancer and the Gunung, where the Nogayandawana, Gasatstancer, Runung, where the Noxana, Gasatstancer, the Nogari, Warishunsera, the Nogatana Yodoxa, it is out, it is out, it is out.
We're getting strong. Everybody stay strong. Nyawagoa, thank you very much to everybody. We'll see each other again. Ona.
Very much to everyone.
Mahalo kia kua.